So what are we talking about today, right? So we are talking about simplified acquisitions, and we have a funny little quote here, and we like to make things have a theme here at the Pulse. And really, it's about like the little things, but really it is about the little things in government contracting. Very few and far between are we the war dog stories, right? Where you sell one big thing and make it really big, and then it kind of snowballs, right? Long gone are the days of making of a Lockheed or a Boeing or things like this. So very rarely are any of us going to hit it big with that one, right? That's going to launch us into the stratosphere. So how do you succeed in federal contracting, right? There's a lot of different ways and a lot of different tools and techniques. The one that we're going to talk about today is called Simplified Acquisition Procedures. And if you're not familiar, we are going to be providing an overview here of what it is, how to leverage it, and how it's utilized in the federal government. And we are going to provide information at the end of this, where if you're looking for more information and if you want more details, we do actually have a more in-depth 1 hour on-demand training program on simplified acquisitions that is available for purchase on our website. So we'll go through that. So the big reason why we wanted to do a simplified acquisition procedures presentation, and you all might be asking, that sounds really boring, is because it is anything but simple. It's anything with the federal government, right? There's complexities, there are exceptions. So we're here to kind of walk you through the things that may seem simple, but really aren't so much. And we just got a question. We'll be offering a recording of our presentation. We do offer a recording of our presentation on demand through our shop, and we also offer it for free to our insider members and our membership. We'll make sure to put a link in the chat for that as well. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us.
So what? Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So what are simplified acquisitions? We always love to start out with a definition. That's pretty standard, I think. So we took a lot of this from the FAR. We'll talk about the different FAR parts that are in this later. But simplified acquisition procedures are, by definition, a government procurement procedure that aims to reduce the administrative burden and time required to award procurements below a certain dollar threshold that changes very often. Amber? So again, there's two things that go into this: regulations and thresholds. These are the different parts of the FAR. There's actually 4 different parts that it's mentioned in. We've noticed that a lot of trainings typically focus on part 13, which makes sense because that is like how the procedures work, but it does keep coming back up throughout the FAR. And so it's important to recognize that there's a whole landscape for this, because it is its own like method of procurement that's a little bit different than how other things go. I had just talked about these simplified acquisition thresholds and how that number can change a lot. Typically, we'll say $10,000 is like the standard micro purchase threshold. Anything below that can be done with is done with simplified acquisitions. But there's the pricing tiers get complicated depending on what you're buying, when you're buying it, who's buying it, how you're buying it, and like even like what's going on in the world, because there's a whole category for like humanitarian or like natural disasters, and then the dollar threshold shoots up to allow the government to procure the emergency services and products that it needs like in an instant. So depending on what you're doing, I think there's like a whole other classification for like nuclear stuff. So in case anything goes wrong. And then also it depends on what you're buying as well. So different goods and services will have different thresholds. I think the construction one typically tends to be a little bit higher than other categories as well.
Right. So this is something that's not so simple. I get asked all the time. They're like, oh, well, the simplified acquisition threshold is this, right? Just plainly this. And the answer is no, it's not. It depends, right? People get shocked when we tell them, well, actually, you can get a simplified acquisition procedure justification for, 7 million, or we've seen some for 25 million, right? And it can go up to 1.5, like on this one, it says 1.5 million, but it definitely can go above that. And we dive into that deeper in our 1 hour presentation training program. But it's not as simple as it's $10,000 and that's it. It actually has different layers of it, different justifications. And some of the buying process, or maybe some of the big contracts that you've heard about where you thought maybe it's openly competed, you'd be surprised to learn that some of them are through the Simplified Acquisition Procedure Program.
So what does this mean in practical terms? We want to put this in context for all of our GovCons out there, because why should you care? Why is this important to you? It's a low dollar value. Why would I waste my energy on this? And there's a bunch of different reasons why. I mean, for both on the contractor side and on the government side. So we have this cute little table here. So there's the four main benefits are that it reduces costs, promotes efficiency, builds past performance, and provides flexibility. So for both the contractor and the federal buyer, it reduces the bid and proposal cost to do, because you don't have to go through or jump through so many hoops that you would for those higher dollar value ones. So it reduces administrative cost, and then hopefully it'll make the process go a little bit quicker as well. So that's good on both ends. Same for it provides flexibility. You can have different offerings, pricing, labor compositions. So there's more options there as well to tailor it to the need of what they're trying to procure and get it done quickly. So there's, again, not as many hoops to jump through there. As far on the contractor side, this is a perfect way to build past performance. We love pushing this for our clients as unique methods of entry to a new target agency. So you can build that past performance, and it counts. That's a government contract that you, like, the government paid you money for this. You can use that going forward and use that CPARS when you're going after things in the future. So especially if you're a small business or an entirely new market entrant yourself, you can establish those relationships. You get your foot in the door. They remember you. They learn that, hey, this person can get, or this company can do things for me quickly, and they can provide goods and services quickly and correctly. So that's a great way, and it's a great example for you to look back to. And we talked about people want to go after the one, but this could very well be your one that gets your foot in the door, right? So we don't always have to go after like the huge gold medals. We could go after the slightly smaller ones there too. And then also on the government side as well, it's good at being efficient. Again, like in case of those natural disasters or when things go wrong, or I don't know, maybe the government like ran out of pens or something, like who knows?
Oh God, what would happen if they ran out of pens? So there's a lot there, right? And the flexibility of that. But I want to really go back and touch on what Haley just mentioned about the past performance. People ask all the time, even experienced government contractors, right, that are trying to grow their portfolios or trying to get in the door, and say it's a harder agency to really break into, say NASA, right, or HHS, right, that take a little bit more time to get into, even some intelligence community agencies. And it doesn't always have to be you finding an openly competed bid, right, to go after and land so they know your name. You could go ahead and find and do searches and research on simplified acquisitions that they have bought in the past, and see if any of those align to the services and the offerings that you do have, and then go ahead and reach out to contracting officers and let them know, hey, we do this, and we can do this under this threshold. And we're going to touch on a little bit later in this presentation about kind of best practices and way to leverage that. But that past performance piece is really critical in helping new entrants and even experienced government contractors understand that it doesn't always have to be the big multi-competition one, right? Or you don't have to find that diamond in the rough that, be secret squirrely about it. You can easily go and approach contracting officers about kind of putting together a piecemeal of a solution, or even a small pilot of a solution that you may have for them, and putting it on a threshold and getting that purchase done way sooner. So let's talk about the typical SAP workflow. Now, I want to point out that the workflow you're seeing here was created back in 2008. And I promise you have three, at least accounting, right, researchers, big time researchers, and we couldn't find anything that really outlined this process from a government perspective any later, right, created. But this process still very much looks like this. Naming might be a little bit different, right? Is it petty cash, right? There's something about petty cash in there that's not really existent anymore with the federal government. But this is pretty accurate to what the process looks like right now. So you can really see what the decision making is, how they get from the vendor to the customer. But as Haley did mention, this process really does vary on the product and the service being acquired, the requirement urgency, right? During COVID, simplified acquisitions were utilized a lot, and the threshold rulings were really kind of pushed to their limit due to the urgency of the requirement. So that's what we mean by the urgency of the requirement, or things that, humanitarian efforts or crises, things like that, where the government needs something fast and needs it now, right? There's a lot of steps that they can skip when going through that justification process. And then the contracting office capacity. I mean, just kind of, we're all humans here, right? So depending on the workload of the contracting office, depending on how familiar that contracting office is with the simplified acquisition procedures, and how quickly they can get that done through legal, right? That really dictates the speed of which this runs. And then your relationship with the federal buyer, right? That also impacts it and what their need is. So when looking at this, you may say, hey, like Amber, these are a lot of steps. How quickly does this run? So when we are looking at kind of the procurement acquisition timeline here, typically special simplified acquisition procedures are done within 30 to 60 days. So when we say it's quick for the federal government, right? It's not a 5-day thing. It's not a 10-day thing typically. It is, at its shortest, it takes a month. At its longest, it can take, 2 to 3 months, right? Or, in the federal government, it could never happen and go away, right? Never say never here. But typically you see a SAP taking around 30 to 60 days, which is actually very efficient for the federal government, in my opinion. So ways to leverage SAP, right? Here is how we're going to utilize the different procedures. Here's how you can put them in there too, right? First, you got to know the rules of the road. As we explained, SAP is complex. It's not simple at all. And every agency has different ways of utilizing it and different procedures, right? Your defense agencies and your IC agencies are going to be different in the way that they apply SAP versus your civilian agencies, right? Someone buying a biomedical or, as we mentioned, COVID, things to respond to that is going to be really different than someone buying administrative or an IT product. So knowing the rules of the road when it comes to what you're selling is very important, and knowing what FAR clauses do apply to you and who don't. Second is being prepared to educate your client. As with anything, as we mentioned, a contracting shop may not know how to fully utilize the SAP procedure. What paperwork do they need to do? What do they need to fill out? What do they need from you? And what are the rules? We always recommend being prepared to educate your clients. On our 1-hour training program for SAP, we do walk through, and we did find a simplified acquisition procedure paperwork for the Navy. And we're able to bring that over to share that with people, to show it to them. We did a lot of digging for that, but we were able to find it to show you what that paperwork looks like. And knowing what that looks like really helps you understand how to write things like white papers or unsolicited proposals or things like that, so that they're able to take that text and put it into the simplified acquisition justification paperwork that we walk through on our training. The third is pricing your products and services strategically, right? So knowing what your threshold typically is, the rules of the road for what you're buying and selling, and making sure that you are pricing those strategically. Something that Haley and I actually came across and we've been working with our clients on doing lately, and we'll give you a little free tip, is creating a micro purchase or simplified acquisition page on your website that says, hey, here are the services that we can provide for under this threshold or for this dollar amount, right? It's a nice little menu of options that, service provide. We do that, right, for our clients, but, you don't really see government contractors doing that, mainly due to, right, wanting to be secret about their pricing or what does that look like. Everyone knows the thresholds for these types of purchases. So you're not hiding anything from anyone. So putting, here's what we can do for $10,000, right, is a great way to get the attention of a federal buyer and educate them, right, while making sure your pricing is still strategic. The last is not waiting for the Q4 sprint. So Q4, yes, brings a lot of purchases. It brings a lot of dollars. But typically, if you've ever heard us talk about Q4, what we always tell you is those are typically recompetes, or they are bridge contracts. Very rarely are they new contracts that are going to, change the projection of going in and pitching a simplified acquisition in Q4 to a contracting officer is frankly very transparent, and they're not going to want to do it if they don't know you, right? So you want to make sure that you're building that relationship, building that trust all fiscal year round, and not just pitching that as something that you can do in Q4.